Hi, Jack. Welcome. Thanks for agreeing to chat a bit about software teams. So today, Jack Dongarra is with me, Mike Heroux. Jack, as many of you may know, has led numerous successful software efforts, and we'd like to get some thoughts from him on how he has organized his teams over the years and some of the lessons that he's learned. So Jack, first, if you don't mind, just describe a bit, who you are and what you've done in this area, although many people know.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, Mike, for inviting me to do this. It's fun. First, let me just say that I work at the University of Tennessee. I also have a position at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and I work probably 1 month a year. I go out to Manchester, the University of Manchester, and work with the people there in the maths group. And I've been doing that for a number of years. I have to say, I'm 71, I'll be 71 next week. And I've been doing this for the last 50 years. So wow. I can really say I've only had 3 jobs in my life. I have the job I have today in Tennessee. And I moved here in 1989. And before that, I had a position at Argonne National Laboratory in the Math and Computer Science division there. And I had that job for a number of years. In fact, I was hired at Argonne as an undergraduate and started there in my last semester of undergraduate work and worked from that time until I left in 1989. And I had one more job before that. I was making pizzas. So that's my career. During that time, roughly 50 years, I've had the fortune to be involved in the development of software, mathematical software to a large extent, but software projects in general. And those software projects have had some success in the sense that they were developed, they got some traction and were used. And some of the projects are actually still being used today. So they have a legacy in some sense, and that's a plus and a minus in many ways. Having something successful, of course, is a big plus. That's always a good thing. We always like to think our work will be used by the community. But having success means that you have to provide support for that software in some sense over a long period of time. And that could be something which requires a fair amount of effort to do, and effort, and also the other aspect, which is money to fund that effort. I started my career working on a software project called IcePack, so a package of mathematical software for eigenvalue problems, and then went on to develop LinPack with colleagues, and that was a package for linear systems. We developed the BLAS routines, the basic linear algebra subprograms, the level 2 and level 3 BLAS. I had a hand in. There were packages like PVM for putting together parallel systems. And then from that sprang really an effort which touches all of scientific computing today, and that's MPI. So I was involved in putting together the MPI standard. I led the MPI effort initially. We have projects like LAPack and ScalaPack, which were really follow-ons from the IcePack, LinPack, BLAS projects. And then today, we're working on additional packages. So these packages are not dormant, but they're active projects. They're involved in the Department of Energy's exascale computing program, and they go by the name of Slate, Plasma, and Magma. And those projects are done by a team of people here in Tennessee, putting together software for the next generation of hardware platforms. And I've been, fortunate in the sense of having very talented people, or being able to attract very talented people here to Tennessee to help work on these projects. That is staff here in Tennessee. I probably have a staff of about 20 people today at the university who are working on these linear algebra libraries. Some of these projects have overlap, so I don't have 20 people working on one project. There's a small group working on each of the projects that we have, maybe a team of 5 people. But there's some overlap between projects, which I think is healthy and helps bring in new ideas and spurs things on. But the one thing that I have to say that was very helpful throughout the course of all of these packages is to get the community to be involved in terms of commenting and putting forward ideas that would be incorporated into the packages, and even to the point of actively be engaged in the production of those packages. So I like to think that many of the efforts that we have been developed out of what I'll call an international collaboration, where people have gotten together and contributed to those packages and have helped to make them a success. And along with that goes workshops and tutorials and other events that encourage people to participate in the software, in the development, in the testing, in the improvement of that software. So all the software that we have is certainly public domain software. It's software that has a very liberal license. We use a modified BSD license that goes along with the software to allow for people to easily incorporate that software into various packages, and commercial companies can take that software and use it. Perhaps the greatest success is to have our software used in a package like MATLAB, where it gets a great uptake and people benefit from it on a daily basis. So, I have to say I'm happy to buy a MATLAB license. It adds so much value to my software that that's a very positive thing, and that's true of a number of packages like that. So I would say that we've been fortunate. We've had success. Part of the success has been driven by having talented people work on it, but it also involves getting the community involved and having an international group participate in that development.
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent description of your activities. I appreciate it very much. So you mentioned already the size and the structure of your team a little bit. What kind of tools and processes does your team use to produce, team-based in particular? What do you use to get, all 5 people for one product to be pulling in the same direction?
Right. So it's a difficult thing these days, given the fact that COVID is here, or was here, still here, and causing disruption in terms of how we operate. But we carry on in terms of having using tools like this, Zoom, to do things. We have group meetings. Those group meetings take place usually on a weekly basis. We use Google Docs to drive things. We have an agenda for those meetings. It's very important to chart the progress and see where we're going in terms of that. It's always good to have deadlines and milestones associated with projects to keep the pace going. And if there is a problem, it'll show up in our weekly meetings, and perhaps we can devote more effort to help in terms of remedy that problem, or to come up with a solution to the overall aspect. The other thing that's important is while we have teams of people, and those teams are relatively small, 5 people, as I mentioned, there is a crossover or overlap, and we get a lot of and we in Tennessee, in my group, we actually have 3 broad areas that we're working on. One is linear algebra and many of the packages. We also have distributed computing, and the third area is performance tools. And those people get together. That is, there's a mixing that occurs, perhaps even serendipitous mixing at the water cooler or the coffee station, where people ask questions, and new ideas are put forward, and new solutions are generated through that mixing. So I think it's healthy to have a group which has different talents coming together and have that mixing take place, perhaps even in an informal way, to effectively do that. Travel's been curtailed in some sense. I was a frequent traveler until roughly, maybe it's about 15 months ago, and then there was an abrupt halt to travel, and we had to come up with different ways to satisfy that interactions that we have. And I think, we've done a pretty good job of that by using video conferencing and so on. But I have to say, there's that missing element of interacting with people on an informal basis that occurs when meeting with them at conferences and workshops that's missing today. So I look forward to going back to traveling, perhaps not at the same pace, but to have that more informal way of discussing things, trying to sort out where other people are and perhaps contributing to their projects and having them contribute to our projects. So, there's a number of tools that we use to facilitate how we do business today. A lot of that is driven by the standard kinds of things for doing meetings and for collaborating on software. And it's led to us being able to transition through this rather difficult period, I'll say, and hopefully we will resume and continue things on a more normal basis in the coming months.
Thank you. That's a great set of comments. As you've gone along in the years with your project, have you seen changes or trends either in the technical approaches you use or the team building or interaction? You sounds like you have some really nice evolved processes and tools that you've used over the years. Have you explicitly tried to change how your team does its work, but either technically or in terms of its interactions?
Because we had to be remote for such a long period of time, that was the common way of doing business. As we get back to more normal, I think we'll still have an element of that remote interactions that will persist as we go forward. So that's one of the things. I think we've learned how to use these tools, and those tools are gonna be with us as we go forward. So I would say getting people together in a room is important, but if people can't be in the room, we have the tools now that we can effectively deal with them being remote. One of the things that we have to deal with here is I want to hire people as I have a group which is made up of graduate students, postdocs, research professors, and others. And in the course of time, people move. They graduate, or the postdoc is up and they move on to another job. So we're hiring people almost on a continuous basis here to maintain the software portfolios that we have. And that requires us to seek out good talent, but it requires us also to hire people. And today, we're hiring people that are perhaps not living here in the US, that are in some other country. And we have to understand that sometimes it's not easy for people these days to get visas to come to the US and work. So, we've gone to a situation where we're hiring people through a third party and being able to fulfill our needs through that person being hired by the third party, with an understanding that when the visa comes in or when the travel restrictions are lifted, that individual would come to us in Tennessee. So we've had to be creative, I'll say, in many ways of attracting people and finding avenues that we can effectively deal with the situation that we have. Within our group, as I mentioned, we have graduate students, and we have postdocs, and we have research professors and programmers who help with the efforts. And in addition to that, I have a very talented administrative staff, and the administrative staff is there to relieve, I'll say, the pressure on the researchers in terms of getting their job done. And by that, I mean, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, paperwork in terms of reports that have to be submitted, even to the extent of proposals that have to be written. And we have people on the administrative side who help release some of that pressure on the individual, so they're not spending a lot of time doing reports or developing proposals. Of course, they have to contribute to the research ideas that go into proposals, but putting things together and getting it all put together in a package that can be submitted and is something that is understandable and readable by a reviewer is a talent. And we have great people that can help with that, just that aspect. So it's something which is out of the ordinary, I'll say, but it's an investment that has paid off tremendously in terms of allowing the researchers to have more flexibility and allowing us to be more productive in terms of the work that we do, and also in the success that we have in terms of writing proposals and having those proposals be accepted and turned into grants that we can move forward with. So, there's a combination of things there that have led to our success. I'll say part of that comes about by not burdening the researcher with undue amount of clerical work. We try to have people there who can help with that as much as possible.
That's excellent. Thank you. Let me end with the one last question. Suppose someone were going to start a team, a software team, and you were advising them about some basic principles, how to be successful in leading a scientific software team. What would be your top few things that you would give to them as bits of advice?
Right. So that's an important question, and something which I think we all struggle with in some sense. As a team, as the leader of this group, I have to let the team do the work. I guess that's the first thing. Don't interfere too much. Understand where they have to go. Ask questions. Let them explain and correct anything that may be not quite right. They have to know what the deliverables are. We write proposals and we get grants, and there are things that we have to deliver on. And those deliverables, in many cases, are software products. And understand that we have to deliver software, and we want that software to live, not just until the end of the grant. We want that software to persist and be used by the community. So, there's something there that has to be ingrained in terms of how we develop software, how to develop documentation, how to develop testing tools that allow that software to exist and to show people that that software can do the job that it was intended to do. So, there's something there that has to be structured in the way the software is developed and how the group is formed, and how they know that they're expected to deliver on those things. The other thing I'll say is I think it's important to have interactions with the community, and the community is international community. And I encourage my guys to go out and to go to workshops and go to conferences and to share their ideas with others. And by that, they'll get perhaps some criticism. Hopefully it's good criticism, which will help in terms of improving the overall situation, and also in spreading the word about what we do and how we do it and what's available and what can they expect from that. We're living in a time where architectures are changing rapidly, and software that we developed have to keep pace with that development of software, of hardware. So, we have the hardware that's being evolved, and we have very little input into what the next generation of hardware is really structured as. I'd like to think, there is this co-design idea where we're helping to design that hardware, but the reality is that hardware is thrown over the fence. We have to look at it and figure out how to effectively use that hardware to solve the problem for the next generation. And developing software is a very time-consuming effort, coming up with perhaps new algorithms and software to meet that challenge in the hardware. So, I don't, it's something that we have to do in a persistent way. The software has to evolve. We want our software to be used and to be picked up by the scientific community. We've had some success at that over time, and that success comes with a price. So one of the big issues that we have today, I'll say from the software side, is getting the funding to develop the software, but then also getting the funding to support the software. So those are equally important in some sense. So we get a grant to produce a software package, and then very little thought is usually given on the backside as to how that software is to be supported. And I like to say that we sometimes have to lie, cheat, and steal to fund the support of that software. But there is a mortgage that comes with software that is used by the community, and that needs to be recognized by the funding agencies so that they can provide for that support for software that has relatively high quality and is intended to be used for a very long term. There's an investment that's made up front, and that investment has to be continued on the backside as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks, Jack, for spending some time, and thanks for the contribution to the 2021 Collegeville Workshop on Scientific Software. And for all of you, this is Jack Dongarra, again, from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and Manchester University. And good day to you, Jack. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike. Have a successful week.
Thank you very much.